Good morning. Um, Happy Thanksgiving to everyone and all of our viewers and listeners out there. A lot to be thankful for. It's always a time of year where you think about all the fortunate things that you have and people that you're with that you appreciate and so forth. So it's a good time to remember that. So. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Hope you have a good week. Looking forward to to this rivalry. North Carolina, NC State. I know this is it's be a super competitive environment and game, and look forward to it. Again, similar to what we saw last week, but on their turf, and that'll be like I said, a very highly competitive atmosphere, no doubt about that. Night game, so last regular season game would be a lot of energy there. I've known Coach Dorn for quite a while. One of his best friends was a coach who worked with me, Brett Bellema, and always had a ton of respect for what Dave has done there. He has always has a tough, highly competitive team. Those guys play with really good fundamentals and good energy, and so always like to watch his teams play, and I know that they're very well coached, they're disciplined, and they're absolutely tough. You see that on film. Defensively, they got a very strong front. Those two defensive linemen, Price and Cleveland, big, strong guys. Very physical inside, hard to move. Harsh is one of the better defensive ends. That we'll see. Price, those guys, Sloan, those guys are really disruptive. And of course, Fordham's leading the ACC in tackles, so he makes a ton of plays. Source too is productive player. So they have a very good front, and I know they've been a little, banged up in the secondary, but they've got a pretty good group there too. Marshall, did a really good job last week, against Florida State, and Vic is their kind of, excuse me, nickelback, and he's another very productive player. So they're tough on defense, and again, very very well coached. The offensively, a lot of explosive players. Certainly, starting with the quarterback Bailey, he's a problem, and they have two really good running backs with Smothers and Scott. Scott's also the kickoff returner. He's an explosive guy back there, and Smothers is, I think he leads the league in yards after contact. It looks like it. He's hard to bring down. He's very good with the ball in his hands. Both of them are. They've had some explosive runs, and then. Obviously Anderson is, an outstanding explosive receiver. So he's their punt returner. He's taken over those punt return duties about midseason. Had a long one called back. Had a long, long terror screen for a touchdown. 75-yarder, catch and run play behind the line of scrimmage. He turns it into a 75-yard touchdown. So. Those guys are good, and Jolie, one of the top tight ends in the conference, and kind of along with Anderson and Smothers, Bailey. I mean, it's a lot of firepower there offensively, and they've hung up some points on a lot of people. So impressed with Hardy. Not sure what his situation is for the game. He's certainly one of the better blocking tight ends that we've seen. And their offensive line again. A couple of those guys have been banged up, but they got, again, a big, strong physical group there to protect the quarterback and, get the running game going and so forth. So overall, really, solid team, well put together, well coached. And, they play with, again, very good fundamentals and don't make a lot of mistakes. You've got to do a good job of tackling, especially on, the quarterback for sure, Bailey, but especially on Smothers and Scott. Those two guys are definitely a problem. And defensively, it's again a disruptive group, and this is probably the strongest, most physical group that we've seen. And we've seen a few, but these guys are really it's hard to move them, and they do a good job of rushing, attacking the pocket, and maybe not a lot of high sack production, but they're disruptive with their power and their inline strength. So good all around team, well balanced team, well coached. Dave does a good job with this group. Yeah, well, we need to do a much better job of that. Too many personal foul penalties, and that really cost us in the game. So we've talked about it all year. We've addressed it, and we expect those to be called because that's the way that they have called them all season, really, through the ACC. The officials have been pretty consistent on that. We just have to do a better job of keeping our poise and playing football and not doing things after the play. So. Thanks, appreciate it.
What have you learned about the NC State rivalry since being here and then going back to that relationship with Dave Doran? What do you recall about some of the pro days with visiting and seeing his players back in?
Again, a hard-working group of guys. I think if you've been through the program with him, you know how to work. You're tough, physically and mentally tough. Again, it's. He runs a good program. You earn what you get there, and again, those guys play hard. You see it on film. They every play is not perfect, but they're playing hard throughout the down, regardless of the position, and they do that. Even the Miami game, they were, fought right to the end there. You could just see the competitiveness in the team. Things like field goal rush. They rush PATs hard, things like that. It's every play. You can't afford any plays off against this group, or they're going to get you on it because they just keep coming at you. So, Dave's had a lot of good players down there, and certainly a lot of good, linemen, physical guys, tough physical players.
Bill, you mentioned Bailey. Earlier in the year, he was getting some buzz as a potential first-round pick a couple years from now. When you look at him on film, what is it about him that really just pops, just makes him as productive as he is?
He's got a good supporting cast around him. As I said, he's got two good running backs, a good tight end, another good tight end who's an excellent blocker. So between, Jolie and Hardy, like those two guys are, two of the best tight ends in the conference, probably two of the best tight ends in college football, and then some explosive receivers. So, he doesn't try to do too much, but he's able to utilize the skills around him, which is what a good quarterback does. And when he needs to make a play, he can make it, but it's not all about him. It's about the running game, and it's about distributing the ball to his playmakers, and he does a good job of that. So that's really what a quarterback's job is find ways to help your teammates make plays and be productive. And he does a nice job.
What about Brian? Bill, I know you can't control what people might or say about you, talk about, but right before the Duke game, there's a big story that you were posed, and right before this game, a story with Jordan Hudson possibly filing a lawsuit against Pablo. How much of those distractions seep down into the team? How much time do they take from what you're trying to accomplish? And is there a way to, in your mind, kind of try to eliminate some of that?
Yeah, I'm focused on the game. That's what our team's focused on. So.
Can I ask a football question? You guys went for two, down 14. We're seeing more and more teams do that. It's happened. Stanford did it against you guys. The Jets did it against the Bengals, I think. And then you saw NC State go for fourth down instead of kicking the field goal when they're up 3 to go up 6. Obviously, the math is the same as it's always been, but it seems like coaches are more willing to take what I guess would be the more aggressive play. Has something changed about the game or something changed about the math that's led you to make some of those calls, or other coaches to make some of those calls?
You have to ask the other coaches about their decisions. I can't tell you what somebody else is thinking or doing. There's no way I could do that.
But the decision to go for two, down 14, when you guys scored, I know there was a penalty, so you got it from the 1.
Yeah, ball's on the 1.5-yard line.
Tommy?
Coach Gio probably played his, at least on the outside, his best game against Duke. What did you see specifically from him, especially in that third quarter? And has there been an attempt to maybe simplify things for him success like he did in that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would use that word. I'd say it's overall just execution, and that's everybody that's involved. It's not just the quarterback; it's the receivers, the line, and the timing of the plays and so forth. So I think our execution's improved over the course of the year. Hopefully, it continues to improve, and I think that's helped our production offensively. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities that we had at other points during the season that we just weren't just a little bit off, and that's enough to have a missed opportunity versus being able to capitalize on some of those opportunities. And it's only a few inches sometimes, or a split second, but that makes all the difference. So we'll just keep working to get better, and hopefully our execution will continue to get better. I don't think it's been any one magical thing, or plays are different, defenses are different, the matchups are different, but just that little higher level of execution, confidence, and not just with him, but with all of his teammates. Everybody being just a little more precise in their assignments and their jobs, just change the outcome of the play.
Right next to the coach.
Bill, you mentioned the importance of good tackling against NC State, and last week it seemed like that was kind of an issue for you guys, especially as they're just holding them back at Castle. How do you go about addressing that this week, and is there something that you saw on film that kind of led to those problems last week and this week?
I mean, there were a couple of examples, but I mean, it wasn't. We made plenty of tackles. There were a couple we could have had a little better leverage on, played a little bit better, of course. Like, that's true in every game. I'm just saying, I think these backs, Smothers in particular, is just very good in contact. He has excellent vision. He finds holes. He does a good job of setting up his blocks. And the more space you give a back, the harder it is to tackle him, especially a good one. So, we have to try to limit the space, limit the opportunities. That's easier said than done because they have a good quarterback, good receivers, good tight end. So you just can't. One guy can't stop a good back, and one guy can't stop a good offense. Like, you need to play good team defense. So that's really what it will come down to this week.
On the right coach. No.
I know Kobe Pace was one of the few guys, at least on the roster, that actually played in Carter-Finley. Have you talked to him at all about sort of what to expect? And I know that a lot of people say it's a pretty rowdy environment, different things like that, especially with the rivalry game. You give him that platform to sort of explain to everyone, maybe some of the newer guys on the roster, what to expect on a game like that.
Yeah, we've talked about it. Several of our coaches have also coached over there and played over there. So, and look, they've played very well at home, and they got an excellent record over the last few years. And so, we understand that it's going to be a big challenge, playing there, and the field, the turf, the environment, and all that. I mean, it is what it is. We can't control it. We just have to be able to, to deal with it. And there's some things we think we can do to help ourselves, but ultimately we're going to have to, go out there and play against NC State. I mean, that's the real opponent. Of course, the field and the environment is part of it, but ultimately, we're going to have to tackle them and block them and throw and catch and so forth. I mean, if we don't do that, it won't make any difference about, all the rest of it. So.
Right next to the coach.
Bill's schedule really ends this way with 3 rival games.
Mm-hmm.
And we built up some pretty good rivals and some really good rivals. State's hated rival in terms of football. So what have you felt? Anything different that you felt in the last 2 weeks regarding rivalry with Carolina and the level of I don't want to say hatred, but the level of.
I mean, they're all,
Do you feel anything different about these last 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, they're really competitive games and, in-state games and all that. So, like, yeah, it's I don't want to say the same, but it's similar in the NFL when you play a team twice a year. Like, you play a team twice a year over multiple years. It's a lot of the same players, a lot of the same coaches, a lot of the same, you're in the same stadium. I mean, it's just, it's a different type of rivalry, but you're pretty close. When you're the Giants and you're playing Philadelphia and Washington, every year, or you're in New England playing the Jets and Buffalo every year, it's twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. Some of those, opponents, call them whatever you want. The big games, rivalries, super competitive environments. I mean, like that's what it is. I mean, you like to play in those. You want to compete in them, whether you're a coach or a player. So once the game starts, though, you got to play the game. I mean, that's what it is. You can't control all the rest of it, and fans are going to cheer when we're here, and they're going to boo us when we're away. I mean, like that's the way it is everywhere. I mean, we've dealt with that before. I'm not really. I think the biggest thing for us to focus on is just our overall execution, communication offensively. It'll be loud when we have the ball or when we're trying to kick it, our communication, our execution. And as I said, we have to do a better job of, keeping our poise and, playing penalty free. We can't. I mean, it's hard to win when you have 10 penalties.
Teamwork, your coach on the right, and then we'll finish our left.
Coach, Mel Carter was super productive for you guys in the middle of the season. He's been a little fire, at least from a sack standpoint, in the last 2 games. I know Wake and Duke ran the ball a lot, but is there something that they were doing to maybe scheme for him on the offensive line to sort of negate his presence?
I think he played well again last week against Duke. Made a lot of tackles, had some, negative plays as well. So, those stats, they can come and go. I think, honestly, I don't think it's accurate, to judge a player on one statistic, good or bad. Like, and that's all it's about is like how many sacks a guy has, and that determines how good he plays or doesn't play. When he's out there for 60 plays, I think I just don't see it that way. Sorry.
On the left, please.
Bill, last night on the radio show, we already kind of mentioned that a few players have already come and said they plan on entering the transfer portal. Some of those conversations already started with you, and how do you kind of feel about that as the season winds down and moving into the offseason and transfer portal and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, Mike's in a little, different situation than I am, talking to agents and so forth. We're focused on the game. That's all we're focused on. Everybody that's there, that plays in the game, competes in the game, will, I'm sure, give their best on both sides of the field to, for the outcome to come out in their favor. So that's where our focus is. That's what we're doing. I mean, are there other things going on? I'm sure there are, but that's not really where we're at as a team. But, as an organization, as a program, as a university, I mean, there are other things happening that we have to, deal with and respond to. So that's part of Mike's job.
Thank you all.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yep. Thank you.